Oh, yes, sorry. Sorry, Laura. I ruined her ears this way. Okay. Okay, so what are we talking about today? Well, I'm going to start out with the first tool for you to understand. The first tool is that male and female brains are different. They are different. You did not marry your spouse to make them your best friend. I will tell you that again. You did not marry your spouse to make them your best friend. If you don't like that your spouse is not like you, that's really cool. He's not supposed to be, she's not supposed to be like you. Okay? And what we end up doing is we end up marrying our spouse trying to get them to change to be more like me. That doesn't work. You have totally different brains. In fact, I love these because it has sex on here for a man's brain, and lame excuses gland, and ball sports, power tool lobe, beer lobe. And so, yeah, all the women are laughing. There's chocolate on the women's brain, mystery moods and behaviors, gossip lobe, that's not such a cool one. Fantasy lobe, shopping lobe. Okay? And so what happens in this is you really do have different brains. God gave you really different brains. In fact, God gave us different purposes. When we were in the garden and we were cursed, God gave man the purpose of providing and protecting. That's what he gave them purpose for. When a man wants to know how he's doing, he wants to know how he's providing and protecting. That's huge on his list, okay? God made women to be nurturers and gatherers, okay? It's so interesting, when God cursed Eve with having pain in childbirth, the actual rendition of that, the actual wording of that is that in childbirth you will have continual pain. Ask any mom here, before they're born, it's all the toes and fingers they have, correct? As soon as they're born, and they've got all their toes and fingers, it becomes a chain around your heart of what they're doing. What are they doing? How are they doing? What's going on? I'm concerned about this. I'm worried about this. That's a woman's place. That is that chain around her heart. At my son's 33, it's still there. That chain is still there. It's a chain around your heart always. Men don't have that chain around their heart. Okay? God didn't curse them with that. Okay? And so we have to recognize that. In fact, it's really interesting. God gave our brains very different verbal abilities. Men speak 5,000 words a day to women's 25,000 words a day. 5 times as many words are used. See, none of the men are surprised at this. 5 times as many words are used by a woman a day. You cannot expect your husband, ladies, to sit through 25,000 words. Can I hear an amen from the guys? Okay? You can't. And men, you can't expect your wife to get it in 5,000 words. It's just, God made us differently. You know, our corpus callosum, which is the part that connects the 2 different halves of our brain, until week 12 to 14 in utero, they're the same. At week 12 to 14, little boys grow testicles. And testosterone severs most of the connection between those 2 parts of the brain. Little girls don't have those connections severed. Now, what that does is this. As females, they can think of more than one thing at a time. They can be doing laundry, doing this, and on the phone with the bill, person. They can be doing different things at the same time. A man's brain does not work that way. They can do that, yet what happens is one thing is on their mind at a time. One thing at a time. Now, why is that important? Because if a gunman comes through the door, you do not want a woman thinking of 5 things at once. You want the guy who has one thing on his mind, and he's in producer mode, don't you? That's really, really important. And I think that a lot of things that happen with men and women is because that warrior understanding, the warrior mentality of a man is not understood today well, or is not appreciated well. It is the same thing that happened in Malachi. In Malachi, they were at peace. There's nothing going on. And the men just became like disdainfully sniffing, it says, at worshiping God. It's like, whatever, and not giving their best, and whatever, because they didn't have their job. It is really important for you to understand and recognize, and, we take it so for granted, a man's job. They are the priest of the home. Do you know that in the Old Testament, this is so cool. The high priest had a special scent that you were killed if you tried to replicate. There was a recipe for it. And he smelled really good. And he also had this thing across his head that said, "Holy to the Lord." Holy to the Lord. Now imagine, your husband is priest of your home, smelling really good, and it says, "Holy to the Lord" across his forehead. That's hot. That is really hot. And so I want you to kind of start thinking that way about your husband. It is a put down to think, well, he can't think of this and this and this at the same time. He's not supposed to. There's so many times I have said to women, check your panties. If you don't have the equipment, back off. Because it's really true. Women get very, up here with it all. They don't have the equipment. And so really, the first thing I want you to think about is holding on to who your spouse is in the Lord and how he was created and how she was created. The other thing I want to talk to you about is stress response. Stress response from little boyhood. Little boys, if you make them look you in the eye, what you are doing is lighting up their basal ganglia. Their basal ganglia are the place where they're going to fight or run. It is an automatic response. If I make you look me in the eye, 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 they're going to have that response. That's why little boys don't do as well in elementary school, because teachers did not know. They think Johnny isn't paying attention because Johnny looks away, And, Susie can just looks like she's paying great attention because she can do that all day long, because that is another place, that's a place of bonding for little girls. For little boys, if I make you look me in the eye, I am creating a stress response in that little boy, and he's either going to fight me or he's going to back down. Now, what does that mean in adulthood? If you as a man have been taught to back off, or you're getting in some kind of issue with your wife and you want to beat her up, okay, or you want to get aggressive, see, men understand the strength they hold. They have to back off. When I do that to my husband, I am forcing a stress response in him where he is going to have to back off. You don't want that. It's really an affront to who they are. And by the way, that's really important to know about your children too. Your little boys, holding them in the chin and making them look at you and so that you're getting on them is a power trip that is going to come back to bite you. I promise. It's okay they look around. It's okay they look away. It's okay they're managing their brain chemistry. Really important point to remember. The other thing I want to tell you about is the amygdala and oxytocin. The amygdala is this part of your brain that is a bonding place in your brain, hugely bonding, okay? It is fascinating. They've just finished these studies on women and men and the hormone oxytocin. Oxytocin is also the bonding hormone. And so when a baby's born, the woman's amygdala opens up and fires. A man's doesn't. Now, a man's oxytocin level to bond goes just as high as the woman's. But that firing place only happens in a woman's brain. That place is the bonding nurturer, first on my list, focused on that baby place. Moms know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? Now, when your husband is not that, concerned about something that you think is just such a big deal, we women take it as, well, what is their problem? Maybe if I get him to read that book, maybe if I get him to just do what I do, maybe they just don't care as much. Yes, they do. That place in their brain does not fire. Okay? Now, why does that matter? Why do I talk about Fruit Loops for dinner? I had a couple once who were having a horrible time in their marriage, and he was doing porn, and she was, wanted him to be the, spiritual leader in the house, and, it was just this big problem. And they talked about Fruit Loops for dinner. Once the mom fed the kids Fruit Loops for dinner, Dad saw it, thought, cool, this is cool. So now Mom's gone shopping and Dad's in charge of feeding the kids. What do you think happened when the mom walked in and saw Dad was feeding Fruit Loops for dinner? It's not okay. Okay? Now, that really confuses Dad because they had it last Thursday for dinner. What's wrong with that? Well, they don't have the amygdala going on of Mom that says, I know they ate this for breakfast, this for lunch, I know they had this snack, I'm dead tired, give them a bowl. They don't know that. See, they don't have that place like moms do. Moms can tell you how many wet diapers they've had, how many bumps they have on their bum. They can tell you anything about that kid. Dads are like, hey, we had Fruit Loops last week, let's do it this week, okay? Because that place in their brain is not lit up. It is not their fault. It is not a problem, by the way. Can you imagine if you had two parents like that? Whew. It is not a problem. It is a difference in who men are. And women with their words and their all this stuff end up infantilizing a man. You do not want to make your husband another child. What's the first thing you're going to do when you walk in and they're eating Fruit Loops? You fed them Fruit Loops? Unbelievable. How could you do that? I can't believe you did that. You're not a very good spiritual leader. You know what? Can you just step it up a bit, or I'm going to have to take it on? You infantilize your husband. Do not do that. Don't make another kid out of him, because remember this whole stress thing? He will back down and allow you to, instead of beating the crap out of you. Don't do it. If you've done it, just put a little mark on your paper there that you're going to apologize for it and ask the Lord to help you treat him as a priest at your home. And guess what happens when men feel infantilized? They run to porn. It's to make your person an infant, to make them a baby, to make you Mother Earth of everybody, including him. See, really, if you think about what you do, that amygdala thing, really, it's like, have you taken out the trash? Have you done the dishes? Have you done it? Whatever. It becomes a really big issue and a really big hurt to a man. You don't want to do that. Check your panties. If you don't have the equipment, step back.